The Maldives is often seen as the land of paradise, an ideal destination for one's next summer vacation and a place to explore the various natural wonders before the ocean swallows it up by the year 2100. The Maldives is also a place where religious fundamentalism, specifically Islamic fundamentalism, is a government-enforced policy. Only Sunni Muslims are allowed to hold citizenship on the islands, and anyone who is unapologetically critical towards the politicians and the country's religious ideology is bound to face some dire consequences. What is often unseen is that Maldives is a country where some of its citizens can only dream of the privileges we Westerners enjoy on a daily basis. While we often imagine a dystopia where a state is so oppressive that you can be killed just for having an unconventional opinion, such a state is a simple fact of life for the citizen of the islands. Welcome back to the Midnight Hour, show where we discuss the various murders, scandals, and other crimes across Asia. I'm your host, Ellen Pugh. This week on the season finale, we discuss the murder of political writer Yamin Rashid along with the various events relating to his death. He, along with other political writers and journalists, are all involved in a series of kidnappings, assaults, and murders that share too much overlap for their similarities to be a mere coincidence. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. In order to fully understand the complete picture of the scandal, it is essential to understand the basic politics of the Maldives. It is a country where the practice of Islam is a government-enforced policy. In fact, the country's political repression has grown ever since its 2013 election that has shown to be manipulated by their judicial system and their armed forces for the sake of implementing a particular agenda. In conclusion, it goes without saying that anyone who expresses any sort of secular perspective in the Maldives is bound to face major backlash. The writers and the journalists who choose to express those opinions are often kidnapped or killed or both. Yamin Rashid was a 29-year-old blogger who ran a political site known as The Daily Panic, an IT professional for the Maldives Stock Exchange by day and a writer by night. Rashid is known for his satirical pieces on the Maldivian government as well as his activism for religious tolerance. He expressed his humanitarian views unapologetically and commented on the injustices that are regularly implemented by the Maldivian authorities. Rashid's motto had revolved around delivering the unfiltered truth, the sickening facts, the gruesome details, and because this is the Maldives, the painfully obvious. Despite what some might say, he was actually never described to be a radical or in any way obnoxious by his peers. He was a soft-spoken and mild-mannered individual. After graduating high school, he then went on to receive his bachelor's in computer science from the University of Bangalore before entering the tech industry as a programmer. His concerns had always been human-centric, which is why he became the writer he is known as today. He was constantly promoting diversity, tolerance, freedom of expression, and the fact that God stood for love and never hate. Now, prior to the events of this scandal, Rashid was arrested in 2015 after he was partaking in an anti-government rally. Now, of course, this won't be the last time Rashid had a very negative experience with Maldivian authorities. As a political commentator, regular death threats on Twitter and other social media platforms are a simple fact of life. Rashid was not an exception to this experience. The blogger was often harassed on the basis that he was a secularist with an agenda whose only concern is to morally corrupt the Maldivian environment. His death threats got intense enough for him to go to the police regarding these statements, only to be brushed off by the authorities. Of course, that didn't stop him from continuing to write about his disappointment with his country's government. Rashid continued to blog and commentate until one day his opposition had enough. One night, as he was walking home from his day job, he unlocked his apartment to find two men waiting for him. Soon, they started lunging at him with knives and stabbed him multiple times in the chest and neck. 2:48 a.m. Rashid was found fatally wounded at the stairwell to his apartment and was immediately rushed to the hospital. Unfortunately, he died shortly after being admitted into the emergency room. At 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, his father learned about his son's hospitalization as well as his death. His funeral was later held on that very same day. There were several others who have experienced the same terrible fate as Rashid. In 2012, another blogger with a similar political stance known as Ismail Rashid was stabbed and fatally wounded by an unknown attacker. It is said that the cause of this assault revolved around his political commentary, which also revolved around religious tolerance and free speech. There was not a single arrest made for his attempted murder. In 2014, a journalist by the name of Ahmad Riwan had gone missing one day while walking home. He, along with the other men, had been critical about the government's take on religion, and to this day, nobody really knows what happened to him. Naturally, Yamin Rashid's family was really angry at this incident. According to CCTV footage on the night of the murder, there were multiple men at Rashid's apartment from the time 2 a.m. till the time of his death. It was a well-orchestrated assassination. These people had guards surveying the outside of the apartment as well as getaway vehicles to utilize once the deed is done. Fortunately, the footage of the suspects is relatively high definition, so investigators can easily identify the faces. There were initially 6 people charged for Rashid's murder, but that number has grown to 8. There was a court hearing that took place in September 2017, but for some reason, that hearing kept on getting postponed or cancelled, mostly due to administrative issues. There were several other hearings who undergone the same fate and whose fates are explained using the same justification. For the hearings that did go through, the trial happened behind closed doors under the request of the state prosecutors. The most recent hearing was scheduled for June 2018, but it was cancelled after 15 minutes before it was supposed to take place. Eventually, the United Nations got involved and requested that the Maldivian president conduct a clean, thorough, and unbiased investigation regarding the murders of Yamin Rashid and the disappearance of Ridwan. Of course, the government responded by ignoring all requests to do just that. In fact, Yamin's father has submitted over 800 letters to the government requesting a clean and thorough investigation for his son's murders. Of course, the authorities responded to him with a sense of apathy. To this day, there is no justice for Yamin Rashid. Thank you for tuning into the Midnight Hour. My name is Ellen Pugh, and I'll be signing off for this season. But before I go, be sure to leave your comment on your perspective regarding this case. What really happened to Yamin Rashid, and how can we bring him and his family the justice they deserve? Once again, my name is Ellen Pugh, and as always, good night.